Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by former King of the Cage Welterweight champion, Aaron Wetherspoon. Aaron, how are you?
Fine, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Aaron, take me back to the beginning. How did you get started in mixed martial arts?
It was actually an accident. It was never supposed to be what it turned in now, and I'm actually just accepting the fact that this is going to be a career and to do it. But basically, I was in bodybuilding and in powerlifting, and I just kind of got to a point where I was about 240 pounds, and I was more of a realist. I kind of realized that I didn't really have much of a future in that sport, and not only that, but then I started doing a lot of research on health and nutrition, and started realizing there are certain things in that field that were kind of going against what I was trying to do. It was more of an illusion to me, and I was looking for something else to do for a workout, and I had a guy that came to my gym, and he knew that I had wrestled a little bit because I'm from Council Bluffs, Iowa, and that's just what they do out there. And so I had a little bit of a background in wrestling, nothing big, and I went to the jiu-jitsu class, and I just fell in love. And then from that forward, it was I was still in the bodybuilding realm, but slowly but surely was making a conversion because I didn't know exactly where I was going to go with it. First started off with jiu-jitsu and then boxing, so I was just kind of dibbling and dabbling with it. I never really had anybody that took me underneath my wing, so it was more just me exploring, and it turned into what it is now.
Did you know much about the sport? Did you ever see it on TV, anything like that?
Yeah, I seen it on TV, and when I seen it on TV, I was intrigued with it and I liked it, but the problem was that around the area that I was from, there wasn't a lot of people that were doing it, and the people that were doing it were just complete dickheads. And so it was like, I didn't want nothing to do with them. Like, I was just kind of like, I don't want to be around a bunch of arrogant idiots, and I just didn't, they really didn't represent the sport back in the day, and I think a lot of it was because there were so few people, and along with that came an ego where, when you learn how to do this stuff, and if you're doing it against somebody who doesn't know, it's completely not unfair. So, if you have that gift, depending on, how you handle that gift is a big deal. I was kind of turned off by it, but I was kind of one of those things where I didn't really pick it. It kind of picked me. I just couldn't get it out of my head.
When you started fighting professionally, how did King of the Cage find you? Because you said you didn't really have anyone who took you under their wing. How did they find you? Or did you seek out them? How did that relationship start?
No, what happened was, it was actually funny because the first fight that I had was over in 45 seconds. I beat a guy by KO, and there was a guy that was close to one of the other guys that I was training at in the gym, and basically what they wanted to do, from what I heard, what they wanted to do was I was very great, didn't know anything, but I was coming from a bodybuilding background, so I looked really big, I looked really buff, and what they were basically trying to do was they wanted to set me up with a lot of their guys, so they made them look good and they knocked me out. The only thing was that after my first fight, I did really, really well, but I ended up losing. He wanted me to keep on going. He wanted me to come back. So King of the Cage, they gave me another opportunity, and at that time, that's when I was really like, that's when I wanted to go somewhere else to another gym that was more acclimated to that, and that's when I found Colin Oyama, and started training with him, and then 9 months later I hit the circuit again, and it was one thing after another. I started winning, and they started giving me a lot more opportunities because I was progressing. I was looking and searching to see what I could do to get better.
You kept winning. You worked your way up to a title shot. You finally got the title shot. You won the belt. What was that experience like? Was it the proudest moment of your career? What exactly was that experience like?
The sad part about it is I really didn't relish it as much as I should have relished it. I didn't realize that it was a good beginning. What I looked at it as, it was going to be the end. This was supposed to be something I was going to do just for a little bit. And, when I kept on winning and they gave me the title shot, then I was like, I'll win the title and then I'll quit. And that's not what happened. I won the title, and I just remember it was a proud moment, because I remember training really, really hard for that fight and dedicating myself to that fight because, I think with MMA, you don't have, at this point in time now, you have an amateur league, but back when I was doing it, there was no amateur league, so you're basically just kind of learning on the fly. So I didn't really see myself, using this and taking this as a career, because I mean, I was walking around 210 pounds. Most people that are that weight were in light heavyweight, and I'm only 5'6.5". So, I really just thought I was going to have fun with it, and I didn't tell anybody about it. Matter of fact, the only way that people found out that I was an MMA fighter was that King of the Cage started playing commercials, and a girl that I was seeing at the time had seen me on a commercial and kind of told me, do you have some explaining to do? Because I wouldn't let anybody, I didn't tell anybody about my fighting career, but when I won the belt, it was a huge accomplishment, and to do it in such a long time, I was like, well, that's when the question marks started popping in my head, like, maybe I could do something with the sport, like maybe I can go somewhere with it.
Why did you not want to make it a career? Was it the pay? Was it you just didn't want it to become your life? Why not make it a career?
I don't know. I really didn't have any guidance. I've been on my own, doing my own thing since I was 15 years old. I've been straggling around. I've been down so many different roads, and I've experimented with so many different roads. I didn't really have anybody that was saying, hey, look, you have what it takes. I was kind of like, it was, and not only that, but this was like kind of before it hit the big leagues. I was just kind of like at that point where it started getting exposure, and people weren't so freaked out about you being, an MMA fighter. I just didn't know. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I didn't know where I was going to go. I was just kind of like, I think I was more or less I was buying some time, because I had a couple of nutrition shops that I owned, and at that time I lost faith in that nutrition, and I was figuring out my next move pretty much, like what was I going to do next, and fighting just continued to keep like carrying on.
If you didn't stick with fighting, what would you have done? What career path would have you gone to? I'm really diverse, and there's a lot of things that I could do. There's one that was personal training. I was a really, really good trainer. There was a lot of things. There was a lot of opportunities that were there that I wouldn't say necessarily that I loved, but because it was a job, and I was looking forward to just doing it. There was a lot of little things nothing that was like, ooh, I want to do this, or brought me pleasure, or anything else like that. I really, at the time, had no clue what I was going to be doing. I just knew that whatever I was going to do when I decided to do it, I was going to be successful at it. The only thing is, I just couldn't get MMA out of my head. It was the one thing that kept me very interested. There were so many different things in it that I was really intrigued with. And the bug bit me, and I just wanted to continue to keep doing it. But I had no clue where I was going with it. Talk to me a little bit about when you won the belt, when you were defending the belt. What is the mindset when you become champion? Because it's one thing to work your way up, continue to get wins, and then get the belt, and then have to defend it. Because when you're, on the hunt, trying to become champion, it's a lot easier road than when you are a marked man and everyone's gunning for you. Could you talk a little bit about when you were champion, how you had to work?
Well, I think it's a little different, especially, with me, because I really don't think that I'm not going to have really great fights until I get to the higher echelon, because there's a lot of times, I was a very physical fighter. I was very strong, and I'm known for my KO ratio as far as me being able to hit hard. So at that level, there wasn't a lot of people that wanted to fight me. There wasn't a lot of people that were like gunning for me or wanting the title or anything. At that time, there wasn't. And so it was kind of like, I think winning the belt was a huge thing, but I took a lot of great honor in defending it. And not only that, but I kept the belt for so long that people were like booing me because they just wanted to see me lose at that time. But I took a lot of great honor because I thought that the organization was a really good organization. It was ran very well, had a good reputation, and I really wanted to legitimize myself as far as, not just being somebody who won the belt, but I wanted to defend it as many times as I could, and I kept it for 2.5 years. So it was one of those things that I took a lot of honor, and I was happy to be the champion. At the time, I didn't really understand the role that I had at that time. I'm kind of late with a lot of things, although I consider myself to be a sharp individual, but I'm really late. Like, I didn't really understand, like, the responsibility and what was really happening, and the fact that I was out there and people knew my name. Like, I really wasn't cognizant of all that.
You're the champion, you're doing a real good job. Along comes Anthony Lapsley. The first fight, a double KO off a headbutt. How much do you remember about that fight?
I remember a lot about the fight. The one thing that people don't realize is that the only reason the double KO happened is if people would slow down and look at it, I caught him first with the left jab, and then he caught me with the right hook, and then we had came in and we had hit heads.
Yeah, if I could interrupt for a second. Yeah, a lot of times when I show my friends, that fight, everyone says, well, he should have lost because he got tagged. But the reason why you were knocked out was because of a headbutt, correct? That's what caused it. Yeah.
The reason I was knocked out was because of
yes, because of a headbutt.
It wasn't because of the right hook. If you slow it down, you could see he was jumping in. As he was jumping in, I threw out my left jab, and he hit my left jab, and you could see where his head turned.
Right.
And as his head turned, he was coming down, and that's when I hit his head. I mean, I have all the respect for Anthony Lapsley. I think it was just a freak accident, more or less. It was a freak accident. And, it's rare that those type of situations happen in fights like that, and it's kind of hard. I think having a no contest was the appropriate conclusion to that match.
Right.
I mean, because I didn't think that I won because I was out, and just because he got up, I didn't think that he won either. I mean, I really still feel to this day if that fight would have went on, I would have won.
Right. That was going to be my next question. Then in the rematch, what happened differently? Was it something that went on in training? Like, why was it such a different fight? Was it because of what happened earlier? What happened in the rematch?
Well, there was a combination of a lot of things, and with myself, there's a lot of things I don't disclose because to me, it's kind of like you win some, you lose some, and that's just the way that it is, and you live to fight another day. However, people don't realize that I took an absence from the sport for 2 years, but I had been sick that whole year fighting from the John, I forgot what his name was. It was a fight before Anthony Lapsley. I was sick as a dog for that fight. I had a rare disease that I was diagnosed with, and at that time I was just tired. My body was hurt. I was tired. I was unmotivated. There were a lot of situations that happened the night before with the weight. I mean, at the weigh-ins, my team didn't show up. So I didn't feel like I had a lot of support, and then the time that I checked in, my team didn't come until I think maybe like a half an hour before I had went out on stage. I was just at a very, very low point in my life, and I was just very tired and exhausted, and not knowing what I was going to do with the fight, what I was going to do. It was just more of like, let's hurry up and get this over with. There was really no excitement, and another thing that really was not just being sick and being tired and everything else, but people sometimes don't understand, like, when you're fighting, you're thinking about another man for 3 months, which is very unnatural for me, and that man is on your mind constantly all the time. With everything that you do, you're consumed with that. So if you really add it all up, you're thinking about one person for 6.5 months. That's a half a year that I'm thinking about one individual, to the point where I wasn't even necessarily excited. And then the second thing was, it was more of an ego type thing. During the previous show talk, he was talking about how he was going to stand up with me and how he was going to, fight me like this and fight me like that. And so I was still surprised when he had taken me down. I was just shocked. I was just, it was more or less like, I thought we were going to stand up and we were going to bang. It was more of an ego, more of a pride thing. But what he was doing was basically just catering towards what he was best at, and at the time what I wasn't all that great at. And to be honest with you, it's not that I just don't have a jiu-jitsu mindset. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I just don't have that mindset. I mean, now as I'm getting older, I'm getting more mature. I'm able to implement a lot more of my jiu-jitsu and stuff into my fighting. But I was still kind of caught up with fighting as fast as this is fighting. Two people go in there and you punch each other out. I wasn't looking at all aspects of MMA, which is something that you can't do. I got kind of caught up in the fact that, I thought, there was a lot of arguments. He knocked me out. I knocked him out, blah, blah, blah. And me and him are really, really cool. He's a really cool guy and a really cool dude, but at that time, it was just one of those things where I thought he was going to stand up and he was going to fight me. He caught me slipping, and, he reaped the benefits of that. But it was time, I don't think, at that time, if I noticed I took a 2-year hiatus after that just to get myself healthy and get myself taken care of. So even if I would have won that fight, I still don't think I would have went on to continue to fight. I still needed to get that break. So it was good for me. It was a bad thing, but there was a lot of blessings that happened in between of that, even though it did hurt losing.
The 2-year absence you took from the sport, what was the road to recovery like? Did you ever doubt that you'd be back in the sport? What was the road to recovery like for you?
I don't really hard for me, to be honest with you, because during that time, it's kind of like you get all this attention, which is not something that I need or I want, but then it was like all of a sudden everybody just disappeared. You know, my team disappeared, people that I was talking to disappeared. It was kind of good because it kind of allowed me to have that time to not only establish new habits with everything, because I was so integrated in bodybuilding. Everything that I did was bodybuilding. You know, the way I lifted, the way I ate, the way I thought, everything was bodybuilding. And what I mean by that, a lot of times in bodybuilding, it's very exterior. If you look at somebody, then you're like, okay, yeah, he's my competition. If somebody's fat and whatever, and you don't really look at them as a threat. And I still carried that into MMA, so there was a lot of things that needed to change during that time. The way I ate, the way I was training, my mindset. I developed a great relationship with God. I developed a completely different eating habits. I adapted my life to more of a holistic lifestyle. So I needed that. It was a great change in order for me to come back into the sport. And not only that, I needed a different mindset to realize, okay, look, when you go back, this is going to be your career, and it's different. Because before I was taking it as a hobby. And one thing with all my jobs, no matter what, I'm a hard-working guy. I'm from Council Bluffs, Iowa, and that's the way that I was raised. Every job that I've been at, I've always been the best employee. I've always had the most sales. I've always had all that. I wasn't so lackadaisy. When it came to fighting, because I didn't take it as a job, the freedom was just way too much. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where people didn't understand. I was going out, I was partying, I was doing a lot of things that fighters shouldn't be doing, but I was still producing. So a lot of times people can't tell how bad things outside of what you're doing, because I kind of realized that I can go out and I can have party and I can do what I want, and nobody will say anything, because this has been the first time that I had a break. I've been working since I was 12 years old doing something. So to be able to fight and kind of sit back and just chill and have fun and be a kid was cool. I didn't really understand the depth of fighting and the sacrifice that it took until that time, you know, that I spent away from it and really, really started missing it.
When you came back, your first fight was a win. How good did it feel to be out of the sport for so long and then come back and get a win?
The thing was is that I would have came back a year later, but the thing was is that after that year, there was nothing but fights that kept falling off. Yeah, we had one fight, and a guy wouldn't take it, and these are guys that were coming up. These are guys that were building up their records. So these weren't like just some little chumps or whatever it is. When I had my first fight back, there were some people that are out there right now that decided that they didn't want to fight me. They didn't want to take the chance of fighting me. So it was one letdown after another. So I really didn't get to enjoy it as much as possible, because, I mean, I cut 25 pounds in 2 days for that fight, because it was like I didn't really think it was going to happen. It'd be one of those times where we start a training camp, I'd be motivated, I'd get ready to go, and then 2 weeks later, the guy said that he didn't want to fight. And then we'd go on to another thing, get another date, and, you know, mind you, I'm not getting paid for any of this, and I have to, you know, with any training camp, there's still trainers need to be paid, food, supplements, things of that nature. So it was just one thing after another, and at the time I was kind of in a relationship with somebody that didn't understand the sport. To a certain extent was very supportive of me, but just wasn't supportive of the sport, you know, what I was doing, and didn't understand, you know, that these people are supposed to be tough fighters. They're supposed to take fights and everything else like that, you know, and so it was just a relief just to get a fight and just to get out there, and because there was definitely ring rust. There was definitely ring rust, and it was basically probably one of the worst matchups that I could have had. So it was good, but it also showed a different side of me as opposed to just going in and just nailing somebody. But I was happy just to be able to go out there and just fight.
How did you get your nickname Slam?
Well, a lot of people think it's because I was picking up people and slamming them and stuff, but it wasn't that. My first trainer, we were sparring, and I hit him. And this was like when I was very, very great, and I hit him. And he said that it felt like my whole body had gotten slammed. He said, like, when you hit, it was like every time you hit, because, I mean, I'm very consistent with my punching, and every time I was hitting him, he said, every time I hit, you hit me, it felt like I was getting body slammed. And he just said slam. And then they just kind of carried over, where everybody started calling me Slam, and that was just something that just, you know, it was on, and everybody forgot what my name was. Everybody was just calling me Slam. And so that's what it was. And then on top of that, the only move that I did know in MMA when I first started was slamming people, was to pick them up and slam them. So people just kind of thought that it had to have something to do with me picking up people and slamming people, which is something that I like and I like doing. But the first initial thing that I got from Slam was from hitting him and him saying that he was just like, oh, I felt like my whole body
Your last fight was at 155. You fought Shane Nelson. Is 155 the weight you're going to be at from now on? And is that due to your illness is why you're not at 170, or were you always thinking on going down to 155?
I'm actually going to featherweight.
Oh.
So, no, what happened was it was a natural progression of my lifestyle and the way that I changed everything. Because when bodybuilding, everything is to build yourself up. And I came from a powerlifting background. So I was using a lot of high protein, a lot of unnatural proteins, a lot of calories, everything else. And sometimes people forget I'm 5'6", and my first fight was at 195 pounds. So I knew gradually as time goes on and I got acclimated to training in MMA and doing the way, I knew that my body weight was going to go down. On top of the way, when I got sick and I adapted a holistic lifestyle, well, basically you're not eating anything that with any chemicals or any processed food. So naturally, and not only that, but I was basically almost a vegetarian for about a year and a half because the quality, it's not that I was against eating meat, the thing was the quality of meat and the chemicals they were putting in meat, I was totally against. So when I got away from all that, naturally, my body started changing. And then, a lot of times these people are swinging tires and, hammers and everything else like that, and that never got me tired. That got really boring to me. So, and that was something that, those physical type of things are stuff that I did in bodybuilding, they really didn't intrigue me. So I really got really infatuated because of the mental aspect of endurance sports that do it, cycling, running, swimming. To me, it's one thing if you can go out and run, 3 miles. Anybody can do that. But I got really intrigued with the fact of being able to go out and run 10 or 15 miles. To me, it was more of a mental thing. I like challenging myself mentally, or, when being able to cycle 150 miles and being cool. Like that was, it's weird because I used to sit there and I used to trip out on how people could watch NASCAR, and watch all 500 laps. But I really, really, really got intrigued with the Tour de France and looking at how these human people are like cars. And I really was infatuated with it, like how much a person can push their bodies to that limit. And I really adapted more of an endurance regimen as far as training, and the weight was just flying off. And I wasn't fighting it either.
Are you still training at Team Oyama, or have you moved to a different gym? Where exactly are you training now these days?
I still train with Team Oyama. Team Oyama is like family to me. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to leave them. I have my own thing too, with a couple guys, and basically we'll redo a lot of drilling, a lot of pad work, because people sometimes forget. Although I've been involved with the sport for 5 years, I've only been doing it 3 years active. So there's a lot of things that, at the level that I'm at right now, I think I'm a couple fights away before I go to the UFC. So there's I'm playing a lot of catch up. And one thing that I'm always known for is I've always been in great shape. I've always keep myself in good shape. I rarely get tired in fights, and that's one thing that I've always kept. But now it's kind of one of those things where my skill set is catching up to my athleticism, and I really think that when I hit this new weight class, there's no doubt in my mind I can be number one in the world. And usually I'm not so adamant about talking of placing or this, that, or whatever. However, I just really feel at that weight and me finally finding my weight class, I really think that I'm going to make a lot of big moves. Like, I really think, I've been doing a lot. And I really think it's going to be my time the next year coming up.
You said during your time away from the sport, a lot of people got disconnected with you. Who are some fighters that you consider friends?
I don't really have any fighters that are friends.
Really?
I mean, my team, we're very, very close to all the people that are on my team. Like Romeo Danza. I mean, I love that dude is he's not only a mentor, one of the guys that I patterned my stand-up off of, but I don't really have too many friends in the sport. I'm a very private person, and to me, it's kind of one of those things where fighting not only is something that I love to do, but it's my job. So it's not one of those things like, I don't go out and I don't watch too many fights. I mean, I'm a huge boxing fan, but I don't really. I haven't got to. I'm a real private person, and I haven't really put myself out there. I don't go out to the clubs, and I don't go out to the events, and I don't do a lot of that type of stuff, And to me, a lot of times, I really don't think, when it comes to this cross-training stuff, I I really don't think people are all that genuine because, you see these people, they start training with each other, and then, like, a year later, they're fighting each other. And, to me, it's kind of one of those things where, I'm very friendly, and I'm really cool with a lot of people that are in the sport, but I'm not sure about, developing relationships with them, as far as, and don't get me wrong, I'm very open to that, but at the same time, I just don't really think I keep myself very isolated as far as the things that I do. Everything that we do at my gym at Team Oyama is very in-house, and there's a lot of great people that are there that I'm able to train with. And then with me, with my own team, the things that we do, it's basically just a lot of drilling and a lot of pad work and just constant drilling, constant pad work, a lot of technique type stuff, because that's one thing that I didn't have in my career. I was very raw, I was in shape, and I was very strong, but I really didn't have too much technique. Now I'm starting to get technique. My footwork is getting a lot better. I just really think that, people thought that I was doing well. It's nothing. My best years are ahead of me. I'm only getting, along with my lifestyle and everything else, I'm only getting in better shape. My technique's getting a lot better. I'm getting an in-depth understanding of the sport on a mental level, which is you're able to focus more on fighting on a mental level once you're in shape. And I think I have to attribute my shape to the endurance sport. Being able to do what I do with the endurance and doing some certain triathlons and stuff like that, it really, really helped me out a lot. But that's not even certain things that I don't tell a lot of people, because, you think about it, people weren't doing CrossFit until Sean Shirk was doing it, and one thing that I did notice is that Sean Shirk was always known for his conditioning and stuff like that, and that was like a major tool of his, but he shared that with the whole MMA world, and everybody caught up. So it was one of those things where I'm very private with the techniques and some of the things that I train with and the way that I train and stuff like that. I give an idea, but I really don't go in depth with some of the things that I do. And for me to share that with other people, it's not. I'm pretty sure that, when I'm done with the sport and I can give back to the sport, and I'm sure there are other things that I've been doing, I'll be able to share with a lot of people. But right now, I'm not trying to help my competition any more than I can. Like I said, I'm fighting people that have been fighting for 10 years, and I've only been fighting for 3.
With you now at featherweight, how many fights do you think you'll need to win in a row to get a call to the big show? 3, 4, more or less? How many fights do you think you'll need to win to get to it?
The one thing that I do is I don't get caught up in, because I think, from what I heard, that if I wouldn't have gotten injured in that fight with Shane Nelson, I would have gone to the big show already. So I really think that 2 or 3 good fights, I'll be in the big show. But the one thing with a lot of the people, of course, the people around you and like your coaches and your managers, they want you to hurt and go to the big show. But I'm not really necessarily in a rush. It's one of those things that I don't want to go to it. I want it to come to me. I'm just going to be ready for it when it does come. I want to get a lot of fights underneath my belt. I want to get a lot of experience. And before I get there, like I want. So many people are so consumed with, like, I fight for the UFC. I don't want to just fight for the UFC. I want to be a contender in the UFC. When I get there, I want people to be like, you better watch out for this guy. I'm not going there just to say, I fight for the UFC. I'm going there for one specific reason, and that's the number 1 spot. So when I'm ready for that, I'm sure, I have a really great relationship with God, and I really feel that, before He blesses you, you have to be prepared for your blessings. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I know when I get there, I'm going there to make my moves for the number 1 spot.
How many fights do you want to take this year? Because in 2011, you fought twice.
Well, the only reason I fought in 2011, I only fought twice is because I tore my quad tendon. In that fight with Shane Nelson, I tore my quad tendon. And that was a fight that I was winning. But at the same time, it's weird how some of these things end up becoming blessings, because it allowed me not only develop other aspects of my game, only having one leg, but then I've been able to work my hands a lot more. I've been able to study a lot more film. With me, because I keep myself in really good shape, I would love to fight every 2.5 to 3 months. But it's been hard to lock down fights and for people to commit to having fights with me. But in the meantime, my attitude has just changed. I have to be ready for any opportunity that presents itself. I always have to be close to my weight. So that's the attitude that I've taken with that. So as long as I'm fresh, and I'm not fresh, but as long as I'm not too beat up, I'm willing to take as many fights as I possibly can.
When do you expect to be back?
I'll probably get cleared at the end of this month. I'll probably get cleared because it was funny. My body ended up healing itself, They thought I was going to have surgery, which is usually something that you'd have to do for an injury like this, but I didn't have to, and I'm very blessed not to. So I would say I'd probably get cleared in March, get back to my regular training as far as going back to Team Oyama and doing this for another month, and then after that, I'll be ready to rock and roll probably April, May. I mean, I'm looking for April, to be honest with you.
You said when you got into the sport, you really had no goals, nothing like that you really, looked forward to, tried to accomplish. What are some goals that you now have, now that you've been in the sport for a while? What are some goals you have now?
Definitely to be a champion. I mean, regardless of what organization I sign for, definitely being a champion. I mean, I don't think anybody that doesn't go into the sport just saying they want to participate is foolish. Another thing, too, is I want to continue my reputation for having good fights. I'm always a showing for fight of the night, always a showing for knockout of the night. But my thing is producing really good fights. Like I want really, really good fights. I want to be able to fight people that want to fight me. A lot of times when I fight people, people just want to hold me, or they don't want to. I like having those high impact fights. One goal that I do have is I want people to take road trips to come and see me fight. I want to headline the Honda Center. I think that would be an awesome thing. I mean, because when I was for Key in the Cage, they had billboards out in my neighborhood, so a lot of the people that I went to school with and the people that are around could see that. Because I'm not one that verbalizes fighting. Like, I don't go around telling everybody I'm a professional fighter, or I do this, or I do that. So that was fun. That was good to see. That type of recognition. I would love to be driving on a freeway and go past the Honda Center and say, Aaron Wetherspoon versus this person, that type of thing. But the more or less, the goal is to always put on great fights that people can, because I think fighting to a certain extent that people come and see, they want to escape. They pay good, hard money. And with me, I want them to be like, yeah, we're all going to see him fight. Like, I want people to set road trips to come and see me fight. And in order for you to do that, you really have to go out and really go put on, like, massive fights. I want to leave it all out there. I want to have that reputation of saying, like, there's not a boring fight. When he fights, he comes to fight.
Aaron, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank? Anything you want to say to the fans?
I just want to thank all the loyal fans that I have had, that have kept in touch with me, that, still believe in me. I really don't have any sponsors at the moment right now. I want to thank my team Oyama. I want to thank my manager, Steve Lord. He's been very, very helpful. And not only that, but me and him, sometimes we go at it, but there's nothing but love there, and he's helped me out tremendously with a lot of things. My team has been a consistent influence in my. They're almost to a point where they're family. It's amazing too, because there's times where I don't see them for months, and I'll go back and it's just like, yeah, this is home. But and most of all, I want to thank God. He's really been with me during this. He's been the most consistent thing in my life, and he's been with me through all of this, because I've been going through hell to get back to fighting, and to spend 2 years off and to get injured like this. But I have so much belief that this is all part of the plan, and this is all going to work out the way that it should.
Aaron, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no doubt, man. I appreciate you taking the time to interview me, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Thank you, brother.